Good afternoon and welcome to Season 2 of Chris 180's award-winning Lunchtime Live series. I'm Chandra Luckett, Chief Marketing Officer, and we are grateful you have joined us here today for probably one of our most important conversations today. We're talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. Should you receive it? Should you wait? What are the concerns and anxieties and fears that you have around the vaccine? Thousands of people daily in Georgia are receiving the vaccine, but for each person who is choosing to get it, there are others who are choosing to wait or to wait until more research is done. Today, we want to talk about some of those fact versus fiction things that you've heard, read on the internet, heard in conversation with friends, and we want to make sure that you are provided with all the information needed before you make the decision. We also want to talk about it from a mental health perspective, how we can get around our anxieties and fears about the vaccine to make an educated, research-driven decision. Our guests today are two experts in their fields, and we are thrilled that they are here. D'Amico Bell is the Clinical Director of the Chris Counseling Center Atlanta and Director of our Drop-In Center and Transitions Program. Dr. Flavia Mercado is a staff physician with Mercy Care who leads their vaccine efforts. I look forward to each of you joining in the conversation today. And just so you all know, we are not wearing masks because we have all received both doses of the COVID-19 vaccine. Take it away.
Thanks for having me. I'll be the first to admit I was terrified when COVID first hit, the pandemic, everything that was going on, and then to hear about the vaccine. I did not want any parts of it, doctor. The things you see on TV, the things you read on the internet, they're really scary. I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Gates, but he even said that I'm making a microchip in my arm. But I did it, and I was fine. I received my second vaccination. I believe it was on last Tuesday. Everything went smoothly. I didn't have any side effects. But I tell you what, there was a couple of reasons why I chose to do this. The first, I just really wanted this pandemic to end. Secondly, I just wanted to do my part to keep myself safe and to keep those around me safe.
Yeah, thank you for being so honest, D'Amico. I want to thank Chandra and Chris 180 for having me here and being part of with you, D'Amico, to talk about the vaccine. What you just told me really resonates with me. Just so you know, I'm a pediatrician. I have been given the honor by Mercy Care to help lead the COVID. I started with testing, coronavirus testing outreach. We would go to different areas and test. And then we were lucky enough that Georgia DPH approved Mercy Care to give the COVID vaccine. We give Moderna. There's two, the Pfizer and the Moderna. And because of that, we've been able to vaccinate. At this point, we received our first vaccine in January, and we've given about 700 doses already. And hopefully soon we'll be doing it here at Chris 180.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And I can understand your thoughts about whether to take the vaccine or not, because I had similar thoughts. The pandemic was very scary.
Yes.
And the illness was really scary. Am I going to be one of those people that is going to get the severe illness, end up in the hospital, get not be able to leave and die? I was also worried about giving the vaccine, exposing my family.
Yes.
So my parents were very upset because I would not go see them. I was exposing myself much more than other people by doing the testing.
Right.
And as science came out, we realized that the virus, because it is a novel virus, meaning no one had been exposed to it before, we had not built antibodies, was going to be around for a long time. And there was no real medicines or treatments. So when the vaccine came out, when the United States approved both Pfizer and Moderna, that was amazing that in such a short time.
Yes.
But for me, and the biggest fear was this new vaccine came out so quickly. How could they do that? Right?
Yes.
I mean, I know as a physician that vaccines take years to do.
Yes.
You have to do a couple of clinical trials and phases, and how did they get that done? So that was one of my biggest concerns. And it was good to research it to find out that the research for the mRNA vaccine for Pfizer and Moderna had been for years. They've been working on it for other illnesses like Ebola and the flu, but just had never really gotten to the stage where they gave it to humans. So it wasn't a new thing. The other thing that was interesting is that because everybody wanted to find a vaccine, scientists all over the world were giving information to each other. And that also sped up how to get the vaccine in production. The other thing that was happening was the phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 were happening kind of at the same time. Usually you do one phase and then you get information and then you do the second. So they were doing it at the same time. There was funding, private and public funding to say to companies, go ahead, research it, get it done. So all that was very important to me. The other things that were important was my personal physician. She was in the Moderna trials. Okay. So yes. If she was putting her life out there for getting information, and she would periodically tell us what was happening to her, even though she didn't know whether she was placebo or actually getting the vaccine, that was important. The other thing is I really believe Dr. Fauci gave us good information. Yes. And he was going to be a role model getting it himself. And so those kind of things helped me get to the place where I could take it. As a pediatrician, I am very important with vaccines. So I've been giving it with kids. And then lastly, I wanted to be able to hug family and see people. Yes. And so, so I also have gotten the vaccine. Okay.
So let me pose the first question to D'Amico. D'Amico, if someone wanted to know from a mental health perspective, how do they push back against the fear of getting the vaccine? They have nightmares, maybe even about getting sick.
Sure. And kind of like the doctor mentioned, there is so much information out there on the web that is not true. So what someone should first do is kind of disconnect. You want to disconnect from observing some of that stuff that is just not correct. You want to listen to the facts. You want to listen to science. You want to talk to your physician. If there's any particular website that you want to go to get reputable information, I know one would be the CDC. They have tons of information that can quell some of those myths and things that aren't true. I encourage people to do things that they love. Remember your coping strategies. Pick up that book, run, go to the park, whatever you need to do to keep yourself centered.
And I agree. The importance of knowing what is scientific, appropriate resources. CDC, definitely. The Georgia DPH website, which gets a lot of it from CDC. And there was a little bit of distrust, but I think for the public and for us physicians and scientists and healthcare workers, the trust is being built back. Right. Especially now that Dr. Fauci is also leading the information. So I think that's really important. And of course, your private physician. Yes. That is the individual who knows you the best. Right. So when we vaccinate at Mercy Care, someone comes up to me to talk about whether they should get it, I ask them, did you have a conversation with your PCP?
That's the first step.
That's the first step. Now, there is something to help with the fear and the hesitancy to talk to people that have gotten it, like you and me, our neighbors, our friends, because that's important. They're like you, they have similar experiences, and so that is an important part of your decision making.
Absolutely.
So the next question, Dr. Mercado, would love for you to answer this, because I'm concerned about the side effects. Could they have long-term impacts?
That's a great question, and that's worrisome on every level, scientific, physicians, the public, all of us have that. And because it is a new vaccine, we don't have enough scientific information and evidence. I mean, realize the United States got the vaccines in December, right? So we don't have a long-term information, but actually CDC with one of their reports, a mortality morbidity report, has said that they've been collecting the side effects that people have. And I want to make sure that we understand the difference between side effects and adverse events, which is really what people are worried about. That event that's so severe, like anaphylaxis, that will make you have a severe enough illness or problem that you might end up in the hospital or that you might even die. Those are called adverse events. Side effects are what happen when you take any vaccine. You can get a local infection, a local swelling or tenderness, or you can get more systemic, like the headaches and the fever, fatigue. And for most of those, they're 1 or 2 days, and they happen with other vaccines. But because this is a new vaccine, everybody's really looking and focusing on it, and a lot of people are calling those systemic, the headache and the chills and the fatigue, adverse events, which are not. And so that is a differentiation. The other thing is the long term, we don't know. We don't have enough scientific evidence, and we're going to get more of it.
I believe we have a question.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, this person says, I think the vaccine was rushed since we really just learned about COVID-19 last year. Is it really safe?
It is safe. The CDC has been gathering information, and the numbers of deaths are very low. They're almost 0%. Okay, there have been some deaths, and when the CDC has looked at the deaths, they have realized that the reason for the individual's death is the same rate as if the individual had not gotten the vaccine. So, for example, if you're an elderly person and you have diabetes and you're 89, and yes, maybe a month ago you got the vaccine, that increase was not due to the vaccine. So it has been shown that it is safe and effective. And let's think about why we got the vaccine. The vaccine is to prevent us from getting a severe enough illness to go into the hospital and die. That effectiveness of that is very high. It's almost 100%. The issue of effectiveness, we hear the word Pfizer is 95 and Moderna is 94, and now Johnson & Johnson is coming and they're like at 67. What it means is that if you get vaccinated, you could still get an illness, but you're not going to get an illness that goes into the hospital. That's more important. But and right now, if you get exposed to the coronavirus, you could get ill, or you could be asymptomatic. So the vaccine is really a best technique to prevent those severe illness, hospitalization, and death. So I do think it's safe and effective, and CDC says it as well.
So we just got another response on Facebook, and James says, I think getting the vaccine is really important, but I have family members definitely listening to some misinformation about it. This really bothers me, and I would like to engage with them about it, but it's hard because the reactions are sometimes negative. Any advice for how to approach that with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And like we mentioned, we're living in the information age. Anything you want can be found online. Some things are good,
Right.
Some things are bad. Some things are truthful, some things are false. But like the doctor said, you want to make sure that you're listening to the science, that you're looking at reputable websites, and you can always make your PCP your first stop.
I also think that it's important to ask the individual who might have vaccine hesitancy, what is it? So you could throw a lot of scientific facts, and that's not what they're interested in. So I think the way to start is to acknowledge when people are concerned, that have fears,
Right.
that they do have questions that are valid. Try to get those questions brought out to the table. Also not be judgmental.
Right.
And we sometimes, I know I have to worry because I am such a vaccinated,
Yes.
pro-vaccination, to step back and say not everybody's there, and to really listen to the individual, find out what it is that is causing them fear or they lack the information, and then provide it. You may convert them and you may not. And that is something we need to realize, that it's going to take a couple of those conversations to eventually
Right.
convert.
Because at the end of the day, it is their choice.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So another question for D'Amico. Since people at my job are pushing us to get the vaccine when it becomes available, how do I tell my boss I'm not comfortable without him having to ask me more questions?
That's a great question. The anxieties, the fear, the apprehension, it's all real. And you have to own that. It's really important to have those candid, honest, clear conversations and articulate your concerns and fears that you may be having in regards to that. Once you do that, you really kind of have to leave it right there. But I would encourage everyone to kind of see the bigger picture.
Yes, and I mean, so we have certain industries like healthcare, like
Yes.
me, who we are going to get exposed as well as transmit. And so if you work in one of those industries, it is important to try to get to that acceptance. But it is a choice. In Mercy Care, for our staff, it is a choice.
Right.
I do think us leaders, and I consider myself leader, have to role model,
Mhm.
and I cannot promote a vaccine that I haven't taken. So for example, the flu every year before I help with campaigns, I take it because how can I say, take something? So you need to hear it. There are those industries, healthcare is one of them, that we need it. And also on the other side is, by taking the vaccine, you're not only protecting yourself, but the loved ones. And
Yeah.
most of us really want this pandemic to end. This is not the final solution, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Right. Looks like we have a question.
All right, these are great questions.
So someone wants to know, if I get the vaccine, does it mean I don't ever have to wear a mask? Is it true you can still spread COVID-19 if you've had the vaccine?
So that's a great question. And right now we're not wearing the mask, but CDC recommendations is you still need to wear a mask. You still need to separate 6 feet. You still need to wash your hands. You still need to do all the things you were doing before. Again, the vaccination is part of the tools to prevent the COVID going to other people. So that is what's happening. We don't have scientific evidence enough to know that if you get vaccinated and you don't get ill, but you do get positive, will you pass it? Will you give it to someone else? We do not have that enough information. So that is why you have to use your mask. However, where you can feel comfortable is that you've protected yourself and starting to protect the community. We know that we need to get to that herd immunity that people are hearing. And how do you do it? 2 ways, with natural antibodies by getting the illness, but we know that those antibodies are not lasting, but maybe there's some new evidence that just came out, 6 to 8 months. That's not for the rest of your life. We think that the vaccine antibodies are much longer. We still don't know what, but a lot of the science is coming out that we're probably going to have boosters, maybe like the flu every year. That's still to come out. So yes, you still need to wear a mask, separate, wash your hands, and get vaccinated.
So a question I'd love for D'Amico to answer is that I'm worried my turn will never come to get the vaccine and they're going to run out here in Georgia. What's your suggestion on managing stress and anxiety if you're not considered essential and have to wait for a long time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was one of those people, doctor. It took me several weeks in order for me to receive the vaccination. And what I had to do, you put your name on the website, you check, your appointment gets canceled, or it's already full. I had to really, really stay persistent with that. But in the meantime, guess what? I'm human too. I'm getting anxious. I'm getting worried. Are they going to run out? Will I ever get my vaccination? So what I did, I focused on the positives, the things that I could control, working out, going out to the park, doing all those positive things to just keep myself grounded and rooted until my time came. And guess what? It did, and I'm doing fine.
And that's wonderful. And I agree. I mean, that stress of when am I going to get it and will there be the vaccine? I mean, even in Mercy Care that we had that dilemma of, okay, if we give the first dose, do we have enough for the second dose?
Right.
And that stress is not something we can control. We are at our administration, DPH, Church and DPH has that ability. As soon as they're getting the vaccines, they're trying to spread it. We're trying to put priorities. And we're waiting for the Georgia governor to say that school teachers will get it, which I think is a really awesome decision if that happens here in Georgia. But the vaccine companies know that they're having to make more and they're trying. So I think we all need to realize that there's some things we can control, there's some things we can't, and we just all have to be positive.
Right.
And yeah.
So a follow-up question to that, somebody wants to know, will the vaccine protect them from all the different kinds of strains that we are hearing more and more about lately?
That's a great question because, I was one of the early, I was very lucky that Georgia Fulton County Board of Health. I was a volunteer, gave me the vaccine early in December. And so I got Pfizer, you got Moderna, right?
Yes,
and we're giving Moderna Mercy Care. And now we have all these new strains from United Kingdom, from South Africa, from Brazil, and those are being a little bit more contagious and even having sicker illnesses. So yes, the vaccines, they are protective, but not 100%. We have seen that Moderna is already doing a reformulation of their vaccine. And so people now who may get the Moderna will get a little bit better vaccine that will get those variants, but that is why we have to vaccinate. The more people that aren't vaccinated, the virus mutates, and that causes more strains to come up and these more severe strains. So the vaccines that you've gotten right now do protect, but not to the level because they were for the original virus. But we are working on finding out how we can get better vaccines. So I think it's still not a reason not to vaccinate right now.
Okay. Awesome. This is a great discussion. I think, Doctor, we have one more question.
Oh, one more?
Yes.
This time has gone so fast.
We've got time for a few more questions, so please submit them. But someone wants to know that they have received the vaccine, but they're also getting some pushback from people in their lives and communities who don't believe that they should have received it because it's dangerous. How do they have that conversation with people in their lives that they made a personal decision and that they don't have to make that same decision as well?
Yeah, and that's a tough one. And I was somewhat in that predicament myself. This is all a personal choice. People may choose to or to not do it for various reasons. Personally, I think we have a responsibility to do our part to try to slow this thing down and eventually extinguish it. I like to lead by example. And I've clearly stated to those folks, I'm doing my part, and these are my reasons. Now, if you choose to or choose to not, that's something that you would have to live with.
I agree. It's a personal choice.
Yes.
And but it is, the more people who do make that choice to vaccinate, the better we will handle this infection and these variants. And people, every person has a different timeline on when they make a decision, right? Some of us are more risk takers. I guess I'm on the more risk taker, and some of us are more cautious. And that's good because we need to hear all these questions. We need to think about other scenarios. So I think as long as you say, I got it, it felt good for me, that's all you can do.
So what is a follow-up that you all would provide to people in, let's say, the Black community who have concerns because of experiments that were done in the past? We think about the Tuskegee experiment. We think about a lot of that information that's been put out into the Black community and the concerns that have taken place. How would you encourage folks in that community to get more clarity?
Yeah, so, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. There is definitely some undeniable historical context to some of the apprehensions. There's also some traditional issues and possibly some religious issues that also could be at play here in the Black community. It's really important, however, for leaders in the Black community, whether you are a politician, whether you are a pastor, maybe you even could be a hip hop star, but they need to step up to the forefront and do their part. And a lot of individuals in the African American community do look up to those individuals. And hopefully by them leading by example, that can better, give them more comfort and put them better at ease.
I agree. I mean, I'm representing the Hispanic community. So my family's from Puerto Rico. And what I know is that African Americans and Hispanics have a higher percentage of getting that severe illness, ending up in the hospital, and the deaths. And we need to really address that. And there's a lot of discussion now about vaccine equitable distribution, meaning getting it to the right populations, because the percentages right now, 68% are being distributed or administered to whites, and only 7% to African American, and I think it was 12% for Hispanics. That needs to be changed.
It does. Absolutely.
And so there is hesitancy based on previous history, but I think we need to say, hey, this is important because it will help our community.
Yes, yes. I think we have another question.
Okay.
Yes, this one is for Dr. Flavia, and it's asked, how long am I immune after getting the vaccine?
That's a great question. We don't know. We don't really know. We haven't had enough evidence. There is some studies going out. We know the natural immunity is now up to 6 to 8 months. We're thinking the vaccine immunity may be a year, but it's not. I think we're going to get some data because Israel is one of the countries that is really up in the upfront in terms of getting higher vaccination of their community. And they're doing a lot of research. And the way to find that out is to actually draw blood and look at the antibodies. And that isn't part of the US strategy yet in terms of if you get vaccinated, we're not checking to see if you've got the antibodies.
Wow, that's really interesting. So a final question to think about here. It says, my parents are skeptical about the vaccine and they are in their late 70s and very vulnerable. Is there a way for me to encourage them to look beyond Facebook for their information?
Yeah, and that's a lot to be said there. Your parents are up in age, late 70s. So we've got some more historical stuff going on there with them. But, I want to go on the record and say it. Facebook is probably not the place you want to get your scientific evidence from. You want to seek out, again, those reputable sources, but you want to give your parents time. You don't want to, it's still their personal decision. You don't want to be pushy, but you just want to make sure what they are hearing is the correct information.
I agree. Mercy Care, we have a lot of 65 and older African Americans, and they are coming. I don't know if the percentages are right. Based on the larger community. They've all been very satisfied and grateful. We've had some where one member of the couple, and if I hear that, I said, go ahead and do it, because that may convince your partner or your spouse. And then the other thing is sometimes if you have the caretaker who may be a daughter or son,
Sure.
That is in the group. So if you kind of talk to them, hey, we can all do it together, that might change their mind as well.
And I just want to go on record and say, my grandparents, both, of course, they're African American, in their mid 80s. They both received their vaccinations.
Excellent.
And they are doing fine.
Excellent. And my parents too, they're in the 80s, so we are happy that our family is protected, right?
So closing statements from both of you. If you had to speak to someone right now who's watching, who may still be making a difficult decision or may not know what they're going to do or what their next steps are going to be around the vaccine, what would you say to them? D'Amico, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say to them, first, really understand what's going on with the pandemic. And like the doctor said, some people may get the virus and they could be asymptomatic. The next person may get the virus and they could end up in the hospital. Personal story, my father-in-law, my wife's dad, he got COVID from a hunting club, and he spent 54 days in the hospital, and a great portion of that, he was in the ICU. So I encourage people to just see the bigger picture, do your part. You want to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe. However, it's also that we want to keep those that are most vulnerable safe.
I agree. I mean, to me, when I got that first vaccine, I was crying. It was like the stress that I did not know was on my shoulders, relieved. And yet there was so much unknown. Was the vaccine going to be safe? Even though I thought it was safe, I had the science behind it. Was I doing the right thing? But I felt like it was important for me to become safe and to help be part of that solution of getting that pandemic to a place where we can go back and see our families and hug and have holidays and things. And so it was really emotionally wonderful to have the vaccine and then finish it up. And so it is a personal choice, but I think if you want to help others, and most of us do,
Yes.
That's our human nature, this is a really great way to help you and others.
Wow, what a great way to end today's conversation. And as I said, it's a personal decision. Each of you has a choice to make. Maybe some of you have already chosen to receive the vaccine and maybe others haven't. But we are excited that we were able to have this conversation. And we ask that you share this video. Whether you're watching on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, share this video to your pages, to your accounts, and help dispel some of the myths around the vaccine. If we're each able to make an informed, research-driven decision, we can help to slow the spread or stop the spread here in Georgia. And Chris 180 continues to be here to support. Our staff members are continually asking questions. They're receiving the vaccine, and we are promoting safety in our community. If you have questions or you want to talk through any of the anxieties or fears, you can reach out to us. Just go to chris180.org and make an appointment to speak to one of our mental health therapists. We'd be happy to help you. We are glad to be back for season 2 of Lunchtime Live. We can't wait to continue the conversations over the next few months. This is Chris 180's 40th anniversary, and we have some exciting things planned for our community, even in a virtual world. We ask that you stay safe. Be careful out there. Wear your mask, or 2 or 3 maybe, and we'll see you real soon. Have a great day.